Hi guys, I hope you're having a beautiful day as always. Let me turn off the ceiling fan. There we go. We also have a creeper in the hall right there. That's Buster, the English Spring Spaniel. He's like, what do you want? He just keeps creeping on me today. Yes, he wants to play fetch so badly. So badly, huh? So I thought I would give you guys a much, I won't say delay, but maybe awaited TTC update. So TTC is trying to conceive. Last time I kind of gave some information for you guys was back in April, I think is when it was, for the National Infertility Awareness Week. I decided to open up about our struggles trying to start a family, all of the unpleasant that we had been up to, that we had had up to that point. And there was lots of unpleasant, so if you haven't seen that, go back and watch that video. And in that video I had mentioned that we had a meeting with an infertility specialist for June 2019. So prior to this, we had been going to our OBGYN for the last year. I mean, obviously I see them more often than that, but, or, you know, like I saw them prior to that, but we really were focused on our infertility issues for the last year. So from June 2018 to June 2019, and then in June 2019 we switched over to the infertility specialist, and we have been trying to conceive since October 2017. So we're headed toward that 2-year mark now here real soon. We're in the end of July 2019, so I want to update you guys kind of how that meeting with our infertility specialist went. So before the appointment, we had kind of talked about like talking to her about what our goals are, and you know, just Eric and I threw around some questions that we may want to ask her. So we'll call her Dr. Lisa. Dr. Lisa is amazing. She was so kind and so welcoming. Our fertility clinic has their stuff together. We got there for our appointment. We sat there very shortly. They took us back, and she had us ask as many questions as we wanted. She made herself, you know, available for that to happen. So I think we went over the hour mark, just kind of talking back and forth to her. So we went over our history. So I have PCOS. There's no male factor infertility. We have tested for that. There was an analysis done. He's doing great. So I have PCOS, which stands for polycystic ovarian syndrome, and we've experienced 1 miscarriage. And we have another thing going on. So that was kind of happening at the time for our appointment. I will talk about what had occurred like simultaneously when this appointment was happening. At first we kind of believed we had an ectopic pregnancy going on that was completely out of nowhere and totally unexpected, but it turned out to be a pregnancy of unknown location, which if you don't know what that is, and I didn't until this point, go look that up. I'll explain my experience with that in another video that you'll see coming out after this, but for now, we want to focus on the infertility appointment. So, Dr. Lisa talked to us about our, I'm so tempted to call her by her last name, but Dr. Lisa talked to us about our options. So she said, first up, we can continue to do more medicated cycles. So we have actually done 5 medication assisted or medicated cycles. So what that means is we take a combination of several medications in order to induce ovulation, and then you test along the way to make sure that you are ovulating, both with testing stripped and timed visits for you and your significant other, and also with blood tests. And that was what was done at my OB's office. Timed visits obviously are not at the OB office, but the blood draws were. So that I took the medication for 5 cycles, and one of those cycles we conceived, but we miscarried, and then the other 4 cycles we were unsuccessful. So yeah, the medications take a huge toll on your body. And then Dr. Lisa said that we could continue to attempt to do more of those medicated cycles, except she would be upping the game. So there would be additional medications, there would be ultrasounds that would be happening like every couple of days or every single day up to a certain point, like internal in the office ultrasounds, combined with like injectable medication as well. So it's just taking what we did at the OB office and stepping up a notch, saying, okay, you know, here's what you did before. We're gonna really like narrow down on everything to give you your best shot. IUI wasn't offered as an option for us. She said it would be really pointless. It would only give us maybe like a 1% difference of chance for us, instead of just doing the timed, monitored, medicated courses, cycles that we were doing before. So IUI, not really an option. She said, basically in a nutshell, I'm 35, Eric is 31, he'll be 32 in November of this year. And she said, basically, if you're planning on having more than one, I can almost say we can get you to one. I can't promise anything, but I can pretty much say we'll probably get you to one. If you two have the interest in having more than one child, then it is in your best interest, and I highly recommend that you do IVF. And by no means does Dr. Lisa have this air about her that they're there to just crank people out to get them seen to do IVF and they just want to make money, this, that, and the other. She genuinely has the best interest of whatever your familial goals are at heart. So we had told her, yeah, you know, it wasn't in our plans to just have one child. We wanted to have more than one child. So the complication comes from the fact that I'm 35. I'm not getting any younger. So that means my eggs are not getting any younger, which genetically means my genetics are not getting any younger. And when you go, you know, to fertilize an egg and a sperm and they start dividing, those cells are tired after a while and they just don't do as well dividing and becoming the person that you have the best chance of having a chromosomally normal pregnancy. So basically, she said, because I have PCOS, I have a fairly decent egg reserve amount, so I have a good amount of eggs, but obviously my eggs are aging as I am aging. So it's not like the eggs are young, but I have a younger-ish amount of eggs. So someone who's younger than me would have, you know, whatever, as many eggs as I have, but that's because I have PCOS, so my body is holding on to eggs instead of ovulating. So that's great. We talked to her about, she wants to do a recurrent a recurrent pregnancy loss blood panel. So what that means is they'll do a whole bunch of blood tests and look for reasons why we may be having recurrent losses, which again, we had the miscarriage before. We have this like ectopic pregnancy of unknown location, which is number 2 for us within the year. Again, another video to explain that. It's a whole other story. That's still not quite done, if you can believe that. So we want to do the recurrent pregnancy loss blood panel. She also seems to think that I may have the blood clotting disorder. I think it's called factor V Leiden or something like that. So she wants to test for that. And she actually said that a reason that we may have lost our first pregnancy was because of that blood clotting disorder. She said what'll happen is if people have that blood clotting disorder, there's nothing wrong with the pregnancy, but what's happening is that when the placenta goes to attach to the side of the uterus, when it's trying to connect, it actually clots and is unable to fully adhere to the side of the uterus as it should, and then eventually basically like baby gets suffocated out because the uterus can't connect, or the placenta can't connect to the side of the uterus the way that it should, and then that causes the miscarriage. So that was lovely. It kind of is horrible knowing that everything could have been perfectly fine. It just could be that I have this going on and no one knows about it. We won't know. So that kind of sucks. But I mean, you can't know these things until they happen. When we started trying to conceive in October 2017, I had asked or OB, like, do we just do like a panel of stuff just to make sure everything's okay so we can prevent everything? And she's like, no, you just try for a year and then blah, 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 blah. It's sort of frustrating when you ask for those sort of things, and then now in retrospect, it could have been that that's what was going on and that's what caused her loss, when it could be something that could be caught so simply on a blood test. Like, in advance, we could have known, hey, you have this factor V blood clotting disorder, so here's what you need to do in order to prevent that. If that's taking a daily baby aspirin. Like, it literally could be that simple, that I just have to thin my blood ever so slightly in order for that to happen. We don't have any tests that have been completed yet, again, because we have this other thing going on that needs to resolve itself. My HCG numbers need to be back to 0 before any of that can happen. So, yeah. So that's what's in the plan next. She also wants to do I did an HSG before, which was an internal thing where they put saline and they're basically testing to make sure that your tubes don't have any blockage, and they do it with like a live X-ray machine so you can see the dye going through your tubes. She wants to do some other one that has, again, saline, which is so uncomfortable, and then also like ultrasound, histosonogram instead of a histosonogram. I don't know. So she wants to do that as well. Genetic testing, I think we're planning on doing that up front, because, and then, you know, start with me, and if I'm not a carrier for anything, then we don't need to test Eric, but if I do pop up as a carrier for something, then we will need to test Eric as well. So those are kind of the things that we need to do up front. So in a nutshell, we've basically said, in the interest of what our family goals are, we've decided that we want to attempt to have more than one child. So we're going to go the IVF route, which is, it's kind of scary, kind of daunting. I know it's a lot more intense than the medications before. The difference is, you know, we would do medications and then do an egg retrieval. We do plan to do genetic screening, or PGS testing, pre-genetic screening testing, on all of our embryos that get created. Fingers crossed that we get a fair amount of embryos. We want to do genetic testing on all of them to make sure that we're giving our best shot possible. To go through all of that and then to not know if we're just going forward with genetically abnormal pregnancies will continue to delay us further and further and further away from what our family goals are. And not only that, it will cause me a great amount of discomfort. Like, going through pregnancy loss is horrific. It's a really terrible thing to go through. Emotionally, it just feels, there's not much that can make you feel worse. It's happening inside of your body. You don't have any control of it. You have this emotional attachment to, you know, a child that you've been wanting and hoping for, and I see that hurt in my spouse and I can't do anything about it. And then physically you have to, like, your body goes through all of this hormonal stuff, and depending on how far along you are, there's that, and it's just all really, really horrible. So as much as we can fast forward and streamline and try to take and give our best, healthiest chance to make that happen, that's what we want to do. So we would do an egg retrieval, do genetic testing on all of them. So basically they would get to the 5-day blastocyst stage for the embryos after they've been retrieved, based on how many are fertilized, and then they would snip them for genetic testing, and then all of them would go and be held cryogenically, just on ice, waiting, and then it takes, I think they said 7 to 10 days for the genetic screening to come back. So we wouldn't be doing a fresh transfer again, because if we go through all of that and then we've just created genetically abnormal embryos, and then we're taking those genetically abnormal embryos that we, at that point don't know are genetically abnormal, and we're putting them back and then putting my body through that all over again, when we can just skip that, that's not our goal. So yeah, we would be putting those literal babies on ice. And then once the genetic screening came back, you know, we would talk with our doctor about, okay, health-wise, when is it great? Is it a month later? Is it 2 months later? You know, how long do we need to wait before we have our genetic screening results to go ahead and put those baby or babies back on in there? So that's kind of how our appointment went. We feel really, really confident. We've had a lot of interactions right now with our fertility clinic. They are amazing. They're so caring. They have their stuff together. If they say they're going to call you with results, they call you with results. And they genuinely have your best interest and health at heart, which is really, really important. So that is the update on our fertility appointment. Oh yeah, and something that was really fun that happened in the appointment was where Eric went and did his semen analysis was this fertility clinic. It was before we had started going there, but it was the referral from our OBGYN's office. So Dr. Lisa, she actually sat there and she went line by line by line over everything from his report, which it was really neat to kind of go over like, okay, well this is good, this is good. He passed every line with flying colors, which was really funny, but it was just like, it was cool because she really got in depth about his side of things, which helps him make him feel like he's included because he's an equal in this matter. But you know, a lot of this stuff is like, there's health issues with me, so a lot of the appointments are kind of me centric. So it was really great for her to kind of go like section by section by section over his results, like, hey, everything looks great, this is awesome, this is how this turned out, this is exactly what we're looking for. So that was kind of a really cool thing for the appointment, which sounds weird, but it was a really cool thing for the appointment. So, you know, really including my husband and making sure that he feels comfortable and confident in this process. And yeah, so we left there feeling really, really great. We have absolute faith. We're kind of aiming towards like later fall-ish time for 2019 is our goal right now for IVF. IVF is not cheap. So we're kind of coming up with our plan for taking care of all of that. The wheels are in motion for that. And at some point later, we'll talk about how we came up with our plan for paying for IVF and what that all looks like. We think it's a pretty good plan. We'll see. Anyway, so yeah. And just a side note, we'll give like exact numbers later once we get a little bit further down the road and we're like, okay, this was the exact cost of this was the exact cost of that. But honestly, for my infertility issues and health issues that's come up since April of 2019 to July, we have almost met our family deductible, which for us is like $4,000 of medical expenses so far. So infertility is not cheap, and this is not even the IVF side of things, and this is not even the cost of the additional testing that I just listed that we need to do before we get to IVF. So we've almost met our deductible so far for the year, just dealing with the stuff that we've been dealing with. So IVF, infertility, all of these things are so not cheap. And again, our current insurance does not cover IVF. So that's an expense we have to find an alternate way to take care of, which again, I think we have a really good idea for how to take care of that, which we'll talk about later. But basically, IVF for us, just the cost for the cycle alone is like $13,000, but then there's like, you know, $5,000 to $7,000 of medication, and not including the cost of the pre-testing. So, or even if the medication is $3,000 and then our other testing. So it's going to be about $20,000 for us to do this IVF. That does include one either fresh or one frozen transfer. So once we do the egg retrieval, those babies are on ice. They can, and that cycle includes icing them for up to a year. There's still a cost for genetic screening. I think it was like $150 or $200 per embryo, and then that cost also includes a transfer. but that doesn't include another round of medication, which is what you'll need to take some medications in order to do the frozen transfer as well. So there you go. It's gonna be about $20,000, which is basically a car. Yeah, the bonus side is that if we make embryos, then those embryos will just be on ice and kind of genetically frozen in this moment in time. So the aging process will stop for them. And even if I'm 40 and I put babies in, which sounds crazy, then, you know, they'll be 35, really. Oh, all right, guys. I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support and the messages and everyone who is so incredibly sweet who has reached out to me and shared their stories. People who shared their stories publicly on my social media here on YouTube or on Instagram. The love that you guys have shown me is unbelievable. I am so grateful to have just this group of love around me. It's amazing. There's a ton of extended family members who have said, I saw your video and blah 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 blah, and then just showering me with love. And it's really great to be able to just sort of have that open conversation and not have it be uncomfortable. And you know, I don't have people saying to me anymore, mostly, you know, when are you gonna have kids, or what are you waiting for, stuff like that. That mostly is not happening in my life at this point, which is great. Yeah, but it's just really great to have people who are just super caring and loving, and now that they know what's going on, they can share their love with us. Whereas before, you know, it's no fault of theirs, but they just didn't know what was going on. So it's great to just have that unconditional love. I will say, this week alone, I have met a couple new people, and they were younger, so we'll give them credit for that. But I had like 2 people this week say to me, do you have any children? And I said, no, not yet, maybe one day. And they said, well, good. Like, they're a lot of trouble. Or, you know, oh, thank goodness. So I just internally was like screaming in my mind, like, you have no idea what you're saying. But I restrained myself from trying to give that lesson of like, don't say things like that because X, Y, and Z. You don't know what people are going through. So restraint. All right, guys, that is it for the update. I've babbled for way, way, way too long, but yeah, hope you guys are having a beautiful day as always. I will see you in my next video. Again, I'm gonna let you know about what's been going on health-wise, so keep your eyes peeled for that in maybe like a week. So anyway, have a beautiful day as always. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.